And I call the member for Wright.
And I thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker, and can I say it is good to see you back in the chamber. For I know full well that you know the hardship that has been that's going on in the seat of McEwen with the recent fires, and I know the thoughts and prayers of the people from my electorate go out to that electorate.
Thanks, mate.
But today in the Appropriations 3 and 4 bills, I would like to raise some of the economic underpins, not only across the budget, but also the effects that they have in my electorate of Wright. And I'd like to speak into 3 points. Firstly, I'd like to outline some of the new packages, in particular the drought package. Then I'd like to briefly go to the point of the economy that we inherited as a government when coming into office, and finally what the coalition's plans are to turn the situation that we have around. But to start with the drought relief package, can I say it was a welcome package that builds on the existing Labor reforms that were there before, with reference to the abolishment of exceptional circumstance boundaries and drought-affected areas. Because, can I say, under the old scheme, to be considered for drought relief, one had to be first meet the approval mechanisms of exceptional circumstances, and that was defined by shire boundaries. Now, unfortunately, Mother Nature isn't that precise when she drops her rainfalls, Mr Deputy Speaker. She will drop rain anywhere that she feels appropriate. So, unfortunately, we had circumstances historically where we had farmers who may have been very well drought declared by definition of the shire, but have successfully had 3 crops in a row, while their very next door neighbour suffered horrendous drought conditions. So what we've done in this drought package, Mr Deputy Speaker, to make sure that we encompass and catch those people that are left behind as a subsequent of the drought, is that we've taken the position to assess applications on a needs base. So irrespective of whether or not you fall within a defined area, will make an enormous amount of difference to the welfare and livelihood of those being affected severely by drought conditions. In particular, in Queensland, that drought package will be administered by no more than the QRA, which is the Queensland Regional Adjustment Authority, and each state will have its own different state bodies who will administer those funds. Can I commend the QRA to date for not only what they've done with the way that they've administered it, and I will encourage states to constantly review the guidelines of QRA, so that if we have too many people, in particular people in my electorate, that are falling through and not able to qualify for assistance because of paragraph 3, subsection A on page 52, don't meet the requirements, that they need to be constantly amended so that we don't leave people behind and that their livelihoods of many generations of investment are able to be preserved. I'd like to talk about the economy that we inherited, and in particular remind the Australian public and the people of Wright that Labor inherited a $20 billion cash surplus, but left behind projected deficits of no less than $30 billion deficits. In addition to that, there was an enormous amount of monies, $8 billion roughly, that was, and I'll use the word lightly, raped from the Reserve Bank. Those cash reserves from the Reserve Bank that need to be replenished. Labor turned nearly $50 billion in the bank into projected net debt, well over $200 billion. Now, at $200 billion worth of net debt, the mind boggles as to how quick, in fact, I think it was the fastest deterioration of debt in dollar terms and a share of GDP in modern Australian history. Now, that's quite a feat. That is quite a feat. To support that, there was a professor out of Harvard University, Professor Ken Rogoff, who wrote a report some time back previous to that, he was a chief economist for the IMF, International Monetary Fund. He also forecasted that Australia's debt was the fastest growing debt in the OECD. Labor's debt is already costing $10 billion a year in net interest payments. So just to break that down, because it's so easy to have a million or a billion roll off the tongue, and it's hard for anyone to comprehend that amount of money. But just if you work it back to a fiscal basis, it works out to roughly just under $500,000 every hour. So it's, for the time it's going to take a few speakers here tonight, we would have racked up another half a $1 million worth of interest on our debt bill. Our quickest rising single balance sheet line item on the budget under Labor has been interest. That is a remarkable achievement, And as a consequence, it is the future generations of this nation and the future generations of my electorate that are burdened with that debt. Under Labor, the jobless crews drew by over 200,000, compared with a decline of more than 250 under the Howard government. Now, you will have those on the other side of the House, Mr Speaker, come in here and aspire that under their term they raised 1 million jobs, that under their leadership there was 1 million jobs. But what they will forget to mention, that the jobs that were lost, because that figure is accurate. There was $1 million jobs created under their term. But can I assure you that in the year of 2011, jobs growth was 0. So that means that for every job that was put on, there was another job lost. For every job that was put on, there was another job lost. And you will hear the other side of the House, the Australian Labor Party, come into this House and say, since the Prime Minister's been in power, that we're losing 1 job every 4 minutes. Can I say the way they calculate those numbers is the very reason that they're not in government anymore, because they have trouble in calculating numbers, Mr Speaker, because those jobs have not to date been lost. They are forecasted losses of jobs into the future as far out as 2017, may I add, in 2017. But the economic underpinner of the other side of this House will come in and say that those jobs have been lost to date. And again, I reiterate the point, is there's those calculations and those abilities to be able to count numbers is the very reason why on the other side of the House we have the lowest amount of representatives in this federal parliament since Federation on the Labor side. To bring it into perspective, for those that will be reading Hansard or listening on the radio, this chamber is in a horseshoe type. Now, outside Labor's front bench, Labor is just able to fill the first section of chairs on the other side of the House. It has been many years outside their front bench where that has been the case. But that is one of the great things of democracy, Mr Speaker, is that ultimately the Australian people hold the power, and the Australian people said overwhelmingly that they had had enough of mismanagement. They had had enough of the abuse of power. They had had enough of the relationships between Labor and the union movement, and that they had enough, and they voiced their opinions, and they put their vote forward at the last election, and the Australian people had their say. Labor's legacy to Australians is 200,000 more unemployed, gross debt projected to be $667 billion. So when you look at their forecast, the Labor's forecast from the last MyEFO budgets, and you work out their accumulated deficits into the future and you add them up as to what their expenditure was going to be, it was no less than $667 billion and $123 billion in accumulated deficits. What one could do with $123 billion, the mind boggles. And more than 50,000 illegal boat arrivals in the world's biggest carbon tax. Mr Deputy Speaker, in the time remaining to me, I just want to touch on the illegal boat arrivals. Under Labor, I remember seeing the clips on the television when the then Labor Party in government wound back the Pacific Solution. And when that bill was passed, there was high fives, there was cheering that And we had, I think at that time we had 4. No less than 4 in detention, and there were kisses and there was hugs. That's right. The member for Swan had just advised me there was kissing and hugging in the chamber because they had won the vote to wind back the Pacific solutions. Now, can I say there were no high-fiving and there was no rejoicing every time a life was lost at sea. There was none of that, because they know quite well that they were pandering to a particular part of their party. The factionalism within the party of the ALP is something that one could do a master's on and still not completely understand how these personalities revolve around each other. But with reference to the asylum seekers, can I report that in the last 70-odd days, Mr Deputy Speaker, there has not been a boat arrival in the Australian waters, and that is because when we went to the election, we made a commitment that we were going to make a difference. We made a commitment that we were going to make a difference not only with the illegal boat arrivals, but we made a commitment that we were going to turn around the economy. We were going to turn around the domestic confidence. We were going to turn around the deficits to surpluses, and etc. We are so lucky of the resilience of the Australian economy. I've got some stats here that I quickly want to just run through. But without Australia's being resilient as it was, I believe that is the resilience of this nation is the only reason that we are able to return and hopefully try and bring this government back to some type of fiscal credibility. But from an economic perspective, did you know that Australia ranks number 1 in terms of the highest proportion of the population of net worth above $100,000 US? And that Australia has the world's 12th highest GDP and 5th highest GDP per capita? Australia has the 3rd largest pool of investment funds under management. Australia is ranked 3rd for the economic freedom, and that's from the Index of Economic Freedom. Australia is ranked 4th in the number of new businesses in the world. Australia is ranked 5th on the Financial Development Index. The Australian dollar is the 5th most traded currency. Having such a small part and only 22 million, that is a bizarre statistic that we are the 5th most traded currency. And I suspect it's because it's the strength of the Australian economy which brings that together. The Australian Stock Exchange is the world's 10th largest by market capitalisation. With reference to trade, Australia is the number 1 global exporter of coal, iron ore, aluminium ore and zinc. Australia is the number 1 global exporter of beef and chickpeas. Australia is the number 2 global exporter in lentils and sugar. Australia is the 4th largest exporter of LNG as of 2012. Australia is the 6th largest exporter of gold, 2012, and Australia is the 7th largest exporter of silver. With reference to education, Australia has the 4th highest number of international students after the United States, the United Kingdom and France, and Australia is ranked 5th in the number of universities in the top world's 100. Australia ranks number 2 on the UN's Human Development Index after Norway, and Australia has the 5th highest life expectancy, and the source of that as of 2011 was the World Bank Development Bank, and Australia has the 8th highest international tourism spend from overseas visitors. So, whilst I come to this place and share the poor record of Labor in this House, can I say as a nation we are truly resilient. We are truly resilient, as are the people in my electorate, the electorate of right, who have seen flood, who have seen drought, who have seen high Australian dollars which have had an enormous impact on their export products. But can I say, under a coalition government, we will return this country, this economy to surpluses into the future. We will do it because we are disciplined. We have shown that discipline to be accurate and right when it comes to border security. We will continue that same discipline into the fiscal and the economic sectors, in conjunction with our small business partners, small and medium-sized enterprises, corporates, mums and dads, everyone that has to put their shoulder to the wheel will do so, knowing that a coalition government in this country will make a difference. Thank you, Mr Speaker.